Welcome back to Talking Tanks, ladies and gentlemen. Again, a special thank you to Marcus Gomez, a.k.a. Mac G. Just announced his retirement at the end of the season. But the main story right now for his team, #1.
Yeah, and of course, Blue Boy's going to be taking that over. That's not actually that surprising with the way he's been playing and from some recordings that I've heard. Yeah. It seems very natural.
It makes sense. Blue Boy's captain is a very stellar player, and looking forward to how he's going to take on this leadership role through for probably the rest of the season, or at least the total of this season on into next season. We have our next special guest joining us via a phone call from across the pond. We have Oliver Maxfield, a.k.a. Laughter. Ollie, thanks for joining us.
No problem, man. Nice to be here.
All right. That means the rounds are on me next time we see each other. It's about 2:30 in the morning over there, right?
You already owe me a few rounds, man. I think
Put it on my tab.
You got to add it to the stack here.
Yeah,
it's half 2 in the morning. Yeah, pretty early.
Well, again,
but I'm a gamer, so it's in my blood.
Yeah,
so cool.
it's part of it. It's part of what we do here. Again, thanks for joining us. We're gonna get right into this. 7x54. Randall and I love this new format. A lot of the teams are enjoying it here in North America. What's the format like right now in Europe?
It's pretty similar. I mean, the thing about 754 is that you can't really put your thumb on it, which is great. It's kind of like adaptation and seeing how it goes through the games, as opposed to where 742, it was like you have set pieces. If a team did X, you did Y, whereas now there's a lot more room for innovation, and we see a lot of strange tactics coming out every single show, and that's what makes it good. And I think that goes for, obviously, WGLNA, you guys, WGLU, us guys, and in a week's time, WGLRU as well, and of course in Asia, the Wargame League Asia as well. So yeah, for me it's great, and yeah, in Europe it's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing from all these teams. Let's dive a little bit more into the tanks that are being used in this kind of tier 7 slot right now. Seen a lot of the T29s and the Tiger ones over here in America. I like the T29 choices a lot of times. Randall, I think, is a lot more about the ISs and the KV5, or the KVs at least. Your thoughts, and we'll jump back and forth here on tanks that are being used right now in the new format.
Sure. So actually, I wrote an article for worldoftanks.eu, and it was exactly about this. I think the best thing, full stop, is that the variety of tanks has increased exponentially. We see something like 3 or 4 times more different types of tanks being used. So that's just great, full stop, as an underlying concept. But for me, my favorite tanks have to be those lower tier ones. Not necessarily, your IS-3s, your AMX 5100s, but your T-37s, your KV-3s, your KV-2s, the kind of tanks you don't really see every single day, but you've had to play at some point in your World of Tanks career. It's awesome. Like we had some KV-5s today as well, were really cool on Himmelsdorf. I think we'll get a lot of stick from players when you drive up onto the hill on Himmelsdorf with KV5s. But hey, the Pro League teams are doing it, and it's working out.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. I love the tanks. T-54 lightweight's one of my favorite tanks, as it is Rookills. It's really an awesome little machine.
All right,
Still
what's this hype about this lightweight tank? Because I've only seen about one or two instances where it's been good. So tell me, please convert me to why this is a good tank.
It's got to be really the turret, isn't it? I mean, it actually can bounce something. Yeah, you don't have gun depression or anything really working for you, but there's enough hull downs, right? I can think Murovanka is one place where it just seems to have its one little spot that people put it in.
Yeah, exactly. That is the left side of Murovanka, where you have that little hill, and you've got the bushes in there. You can just sit it there, and it will bounce. Whereas we've seen like the RU-251 being put in the same position.
All right. I'll have to take a look.
It just hasn't worked.
I'll take a look a little more in depth. I'll try out the lightweight myself. I guess I need to be converted.
It's really good.
It's okay.
One real quick thing. Artie at tier 7 and tier 6.
Yeah.
Those have been so strange. We have Fun Gaming over here in America that's been able to bring the AMX F3, and there have been battles where you get astounding damage for what you would kind of expect out of something that's not that accurate and doesn't usually hit that hard. What about in EU? I know you guys have had some, but probably not as much as America.
Oh, we saw the MX-13 as well on, I think it was on Monday's show. I think that was Momentum picking that one up, one of the EU teams. And the interesting thing about that match was that the M44 was being used as well, and this is on Prokhorovka. So the M44 just isn't accurate at all. It's going for that quantity of shots. And I think the AMX-13 is a little bit more accurate. So we had that whole matchup of, accuracy versus quantity and quality versus quantity. And yeah, it's been really interesting. I mean, personally, I am an artillery player.
Yeah.
So it's great to be able to see the guys who I started playing with and, my opponents in artillery picking these pieces up. For instance, Arclit, the team leader of School Bus, he's just so fantastic. If you want to see how to play artillery, even when it's not particularly accurate, just watch his VODs.
I love the arty being used. Sometimes I wish if it could be more accurate, if there's some sort of little piece that one of these teams needs to figure out in order for it to be even better. I like its usage on steps and even some of these attackers bringing like a GW Panther on the field.
Oh, you're talking about Simp.
Yeah, to change some things up as well. Has proven with some success, but I haven't seen a big, oh my gosh, it's been so successful for some of these teams with arty yet. There's still plenty of chances for these teams. Let's move on and talk about these new tanks that have been added recently, Oliver, starting with the RU-251. Do you like this tank or do you love this tank?
I think the RU-251 is the jack of all trades, master of none. It's not really bad at anything. I have this theory in World of Tanks that there's two types of tanks that are successful. One type that does everything well, and the other type is where it does one thing well.
The specialist tank.
Yeah, you have like a T-32. I mean, you like to say T-32 no cons, but it's quite slow. But
I know.
It's great. It's great hull down, for instance. It's got great turret armor. That's what gives it that speciality. The RU-251, it's fast, it's maneuverable, it's got a little bit of HP to play around with. The gun is fairly accurate, aims down quickly. And then obviously when you're loading HE ammo, you're doing like 320 average damage with 110 penetration. So it can really, really do some pain to the enemy team if you do connect.
It does seem like it works really well when it's up against other light tanks, but when I see an RU against a heavier lineup where there's a lot of T-32s or the not usual, but sometimes 110s we've seen a few times, it kind of starts to lose its advantages.
Well, because of its survivability, I think a lot of it too, because its armor is thin, its hit points are moderate. I mean, they're good enough to stay alive in a fight for a little bit, but once they start taking damage, you see them fall pretty quick.
Well, I think it's the shell types. You have HE, which works well against light tanks, but against heavy tanks, you're not hitting that hard. And then the heat, we all know the heat doesn't work so well once you start going up against tanks that have, tracks that they're going to use or really well-sloped armor. So it seems to kind of fail when you throw it up against those heavy tanks, but you won't run up against them most of the time.
I definitely agree with Oliver's statement with its jack of all trades. T-49, though, that's more of a specialist tank. And Ollie, I don't know if anybody's done this in Europe, but at least in America, we've seen one time somebody bring a T-49 without the 152 millimeter, which we all think is a mistake here. Has that happened at all in Europe, or is there somebody out there that can prove us wrong? Scenario to bring a T-49 without the 152?
Yeah, it's been used in Europe, I believe by WSD Gaming. It might have, yeah. To be honest, I agree with you. I don't think it's a great idea because I think the RU-251 does pretty much the same thing, but a little bit better. I mean, 251's got great gun depression as well. So yeah, we have seen that T-49 with the smaller gun.
Well, I love when people bring the T-49, especially on Cliff, when it's able to just land these big shots and in one instance completely annihilate a tank in one shot. So taking out these T-37s, either scout tanks in one shot, it's great. But I mean, I agree with you in a sense of, well, you have the consistent fire better for an RU-251, better accuracy compared to a T-49. To me, a T-49 is a run and gun tank. You move in real close, land the shot, and get the heck out of there.
Yeah, but
that's exactly what it's for. I mean, we saw today TCM Gaming versus Drulian Momentum even, and on Cliff we saw Eurofish, which is one of the players. He just pushes forwards. He finds the first tank, which happened to be an M41, 910 HP, and just blows it away. And that gives TCM already an advantage of a tank. Gets the gun out of the game, which is exactly how you should be playing that tank.
Although there's one little debate in my mind, which is, if it's a coin flip, is the T-49 a coin flip, or is it good enough to bring and kind of depend on at least some consistent damage?
I think I had the same query at the beginning of the season, but, almost 8 match days in now, I've seen enough damage done by the T-49 to think it's not a coin flip anymore. I mean, there's very rarely a battle on Cliff, for instance, where the T-49's not doing good damage. I mean, we're seeing like 2 to 2.5K damage consistently from that tank played by these top players. I mean, of course, you're going to see the top players playing these guys, Elian, Ural Fishes, your Still Mojos, your Apple Wows. These top players are trusted with this tank because they will be hitting their shells. They will be in the right position. So I think it's, of course, a little bit of a coin flip because there are some situations and at a certain time in the battle where it's not useful anymore. But in general, I think it does enough damage to warrant the coin flip.
All right, let's move on and talk about the Global Grand Finals, Ollie, which I'm sure we're going to meet each other there, wherever it's being held. We're going to release more information as soon as it's public knowledge. But as we prepare for the Global Grand Finals, which teams are standing out the most, do you think, that can have a shot to maybe take down, not, Na'Vi, but maybe take down some of the American teams you've been seeing? Or who do you think best represents EU right now?
It's going up and down. It's another feature of 754, which I'm loving. The teams which are good in 742 aren't unbeatable now. 742, your Virtus Pros, your School Buses, they were just unbeatable. But now we've seen School Bus lose 2 in a row.
What?
Also,
what?
We're seeing, yeah.
This has happened? I got to catch
we saw
up.
Monday, but School Bus lose 5-4 against WASD Gaming, which they were known as C-Play. They came third in the Season 4 finals, but they aren't, they weren't considered a consistent team. And Virtus Pro, they've also gone 5-4. Yeah, they won the 5-4, but they've done that twice. So for me, of course, your School Buses and your Virtus Pros are still the top teams. But I'm expecting, for instance, Kazna Crew, WSD Gaming, TCM Gaming, those kind of teams to have a shot at going to the Grand Finals, and meet, for instance, Simp, who I'm sure will get there as well.
Yeah, for North America, they are our top contender, but this is the kind of the tough spot we're in as a league that we had a void a bit with Fnatic no longer with us. Yeah. And so with that, there's teams that need to be able to contend with Simp, and that's kind of what this season is turning into. Who can beat Simp? Who can beat Simp? Who can beat Simp? And in Season 1, the question was who can beat Fulcrum Gaming? Who could beat Fulcrum Gaming? Who could beat Fulcrum Gaming?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's really going to compete with Simp really much this season. It's about who's going to be that second place team and maybe try to reach out for them and make it to that finals. But my expectations for anyone to touch Simp right now I don't think it's really going to happen in America.
Yeah, the domination that happened, which is kind of tough to bring up, which we'll bring up later a little bit, the Rumble in the West. You have to have teams compete in a sense outside of their leagues. You have to have teams like Russia and North America or Europe be able to compete outside of the Global Grand Finals, at least to skirmish a little bit, maybe forge some sort of alliances to try to beat Na'Vi. That was kind of the question from the Global Grand Finals last season.
Oh, and
last year.
And real quick, Ollie, I want your opinion on this too. I was talking to Mac earlier, and he seems to think, and we might agree a little bit, if Simp was to face EU teams, maybe, where do you think they would place? Like, if 1 to 10 kind of a thing area, where in that do you think they would be?
I was actually talking about this last night on TeamSpeak to some of the teams, some of the European teams, and actually, Mac was talking in that interview saying, "Oh, we do actually get up at 10 o'clock in the morning to train against European teams, and the European teams think Simp's a very good team." And I think there would be a top 6 contender. I think they would be going to the finals. I think they could even be a top 3 contender, top 4 contender. It's 754. I've seen Simp play. They're great players. They got great coordination. They're clearly good friends, and that will push them a long way. And it just depends on how they turn up to the tournament on the day. Just like Fnatic at the Global Grand Finals, how they turned up at the tournament, they should have done better, but they just went in there with too much pressure. And I think Simp doesn't have that problem. They're more relaxed, and it definitely suits this format more.
Oliver, we can all agree that 7x54 really changed a lot of things, but does that change anything for Korea or Southeast Asia or the Chinese League, which we don't see much, obviously, because it's in another part of the world? But is this an opening for some of those teams to surprise us even more? For example, Arete from Korea?
For sure. There's always a dark horse, and that's going to be one of the storylines for the Grand Finals is the Chinese teams, the Asian teams, the Korean teams, what can they provide, which we haven't seen yet. We're talking with Europe, North America, and Russia. We're always playing against each other. We're always training against each other. We're watching each other's streams. We kind of know what to expect. But with those regions, we can watch, for instance, Wargaming Asia. they have their streams, but we have no idea what goes on in China. And it's always very interesting. And I think they can provide that dark horse element. They can do some damage. They just need to do their research. They need to, potentially just sit down for hours on end and just theory craft the hell out of these games. And I think
I'm waiting for PvP. I'm waiting for PvP and Batman to come back.
Sometimes wear a superhero mask. That's all you need sometimes on stage, at least, for Batman PvP Super Friends, which was one of the best storylines to come out of last year's Global Grand Finals, for sure.
Yeah, Batman was awesome.
I remember that. I remember how excited Mitch was. Mitch Leslie, who was the host from Australia, friends with PvP Super Friends. Final topic, NA versus EU. This ties a little bit into the Global Grand Finals. So Rumble in the West was a massacre, Oliver, and I know you like to hang that over our heads a little bit. We kind of wink and say, hey, Elevate, hey, Cunninghams, get it together, because you guys did not take a single battle off our European counterparts in the Rumble in the West. Do you think that has maybe gone to some of the Europeans' heads when it comes to the North American teams, or are they still a little bit like, hey, there's definitely some teams in the mix we'd love to go toe-to-toe with?
Yeah, but it's all in good jest. It's a sign of a healthy environment, a healthy competitive environment when we can have these these jokes against each other. Europe versus North America.
That's why I owe you so much at the next pub we go to. By the way. I think it's I should never have taken that bet, Oliver. I think I bet in like 1 or 2 drinks. Like, yeah, we'll at least take one battle. No, it didn't happen.
Didn't quite happen. I mean, you still owe me ice cream as well.
Yeah. I'll make a list. It's a grocery list now. Yeah,
but I think the Cunninghams did well. I mean, they're doing well this season. They aren't quite on the level of Simp, but RBIS, the Cunninghams all seem to be playing pretty well. Elevate, not so much, but they've got to do some training. At the end of the day, I think for the Cunninghams and for Elevate, Bernal Empire is known as what they were known back then, obviously. For them, it was like they get to go to Poland, they get to go to Europe, and it's just a bonus that they get to play their favorite tank there. Whereas Virtus Pro, they're obviously from Russia, it's just around the corner. School Bus also from the same region. So, and they're obviously going to take it a little bit more seriously. They've been playing the game a lot longer, and they have a fiercer competitive lineup on a regular basis. So it's not a big deal, in my opinion.
All right, final thoughts, Oliver, before we say goodbye?
I would just like to shout out to MacG for announcing his retirement for Season 6. I don't know a lot of people know this, but me and MacG actually used to play together in a team and in a clan known as Pirates. Before there was actually such thing as a European and North American server, we all played in an East Coast server in North America. And I remember the day when he told us that he would actually not come over to the European server and play with us. He's going to start his own little North American team. And we were like, yeah, they're not going to be able to do well. How he's proven me wrong.
Whatever happened to Pirates?
It's still up and running.
Really?
It's pretty much the last clan from those days that it's still alive and well. All the other ones, One Pad, One SPP, and Red Tide, they're all pretty much dead at this point. But it's still up in there. It's still up and running.
Piece of it's still alive.
Piece of it's still alive. Not quite its old form of glory days, but still.
All right, Oliver. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you very soon, and good luck. And say hello to everybody at the European studio.
Will do. You too.
All right. See ya. I got to stop remembering how much I own when it comes to drinks and other things and ice cream and stuff like that.
And ice cream.
Huge thank you again to Oliver for joining us. We have one final guest. That's you joining us after this. Stay tuned.